The Homeland Security Department beefing up security right now at federal buildings across the country. Secretary Jay Johnson calling the move a precaution after recent threats from ISIS, as well as terror attacks in Canada that killed 2 soldiers. But despite all of this, the question is, why now? Take a look at this. This is the Twitter page for the National Terror Advisory System. As you can see, it has more than 22,000 followers, yet there has never been an alert. Same thing on Facebook, more than 31,000 likes, yet not a single post. So what's going on here? Time for some real talk with Ryan Mauro, security analyst with Clarion Project. Let's start first with Jay Johnson, Department of Homeland Security Secretary. The timing of him yesterday raising the alert at federal buildings. Why now?
Well, it's obviously in reaction to the fact that we had 3 jihadist attacks in North America over the course of just 1 week, less than a week. And there's no specific intelligence, is what officials are saying, so there's no specific reason to make this alert. So why do they do it? Well, they're saying it's because of generic threats to the homeland, but we've been dealing with that since 9/11. So the question still remains, why did they do it? Well, first of all, it's because if there is an attack, they need to be able to say, well, we went on alert at least, otherwise it's going to be a disaster in the eyes of the public.
Right.
And secondly, the thing that they're not saying, which is obviously true, is that the threat is increasing. The number of terrorist attacks and plots is increasing here and globally.
So is it a CYA, a cover-your-butt situation right before the midterm elections potentially?
It is. It's based on a real concern that there's going to be an attack on American soil. But again, the standard typically has been, well, is there specific intelligence? If there is, then there's going to be an alert. And so
why wouldn't they have done it last week? I mean, that's where you had the hatchet man in New York City and the events in Canada, and yet it didn't happen last week. It happens yesterday.
Well, that's because they're noticing the trend. This is basically a wake-up call. When you look at the numbers, there's been actually 4 acts of Islamist-inspired violence on American soil this year. So it's not just the attack with an axe on 2 NYPD officers. What you are seeing is a trend. And when you look at the numbers, the number of al-Qaeda-type jihadists has doubled since 2010. The number of that type of jihadist attacks globally has tripled since 2010. So I think they're noticing a trend here. But if you say it, imagine the political ads that will follow.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because we have known about those trends since 2010 and nothing was done, unfortunately, until those attacks happened. I want to move you now to the National Terrorist Advisory System. This is the system that the Obama administration changed from the color-coded system that was in effect under the Bush administration for terror warnings to the American public. 3 years, Ryan, and not one blip, not one change, not one post, nothing. Why?
And from their perspective, what they would say is, well, we have a very high standard for releasing out alerts. We want specific intelligence about an active plot. Otherwise, there'll be fatigue from the public. If you're consistently sending out alerts saying, oh, well, this group issued out a generic alert, and then this one also did that. And so they have a high standard for doing that. And also, when you do issue an alert, there's increased costs. You have an increased amount of security that you have to pay for. There's economic damage.
I can't imagine how many people work in this particular unit, you know, looking after this system. What are they doing all day?
Well, the people within the Department of Homeland Security are good, and they are keeping track of the threat. The issue is what is the standard in which you release a threat, an alert? If the standard is just, okay, well, we're waiting for specific intelligence of a plot, is that good enough? What if we just enter a more dangerous period, such as ISIS taking over 1/3 of Iraq and 1/3 of Syria? Is that enough for a general alert that will last into the foreseeable future? Or are we just waiting until we get the smoking gun, that there is a real active plot headed our way?
All right, Ryan Mauro, an expert on all of this. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
What if you could